Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership, What's on Your Mind. Remember, if you don't already know, we are a podcast to make you stop and think about your leadership journey by having amazing people with amazing stories and experts in their field. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow us on your podcast provider. So today we are speaking to Jason. How are you, sir?
Very good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good. This has been a long time coming, hasn't it? Like it's quite phenomenal how long we've known each other, and we've done some work together, which I'll allude to. You were on my first ever iteration of my leadership online course, which we might talk about a little bit.
Okay.
I know that you were a listener to the podcast, so there's lots of things to dig into. But to start off with, for people who don't know who you are, tell us who you are, what you do, and it might give an example of why you're on the podcast.
Okay, so really, myself and my wife, you can see I've got Tracy's name on there, but we run two businesses together, and both of them are involved around helping people. So one of them is a business networking organization. We set that up about 4 years ago after being in sort of networking franchising for about 10 years. And the other business is just helping people save money on their bills, but in the current climate it's right up there. So and that's through an organization which is a network marketing business. So yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. So for us it is literally just about helping people, and that's what we do.
Yeah, amazing. And I'm gonna talk about the link and the leadership link to having working and running two businesses with your partner as well. That's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? So before we forget, obviously we're hashtag leadership, what's on your mind? Like, what does come to your mind when you hear the word leadership? Good question.
So again, when we worked together and I did the course, I had a real, I suppose we can call it imposter syndrome, because I never really saw myself as a leader as such. So I sort of had to reframe that a lot for me personally, because yes, we were a leader. Yes, we were in charge of a team of hundreds of people. I say in charge, but we look after hundreds of people. And that's what I was being seen as. But don't you think it's really strange that I didn't see that in myself? So you helped me to reframe that. And so for me, leadership is about, and it's not always about leading from the front either. You can lead from behind. This is something else we talked about. Yeah. So for me, leadership is really about showing people a way, showing people that there is something different out there, is a better way. And that's what it is for me. And really just encouraging people, creating that environment, and that means that's something that we wanted to talk about a little bit later on probably, but culture, that was really important for me. So creating a culture or an environment where people can thrive. So that for me, that's what leadership is.
Awesome. So I said obviously we're going to really focus on you today, because I think your story is really interesting to share with the audience about where they might be with leveling up their skill set and their journey, if you like. But where did your leadership journey start? So whether it's on reflection, or there was a light bulb moment at the time, like how far back are we going for like when your leadership journey started?
Oh God, really, again, good question. So something happened recently that made me really think about this. So when I was younger, and I'm talking 4 or 5 years old, and my mum really tells this story better than I can, but both my cousins, they always sort of did the stuff that I was always the ringleader. So I always would say, okay, so let's just say there were some biscuits at the top of on the top shelf. I would never be the one that went and got the biscuits. I would be the one that said, right, what I'll do is I'll get the chair, right, and then you two guys climb up, you go on top of their shoulders and get the biscuits, pass them down to me. So I suppose when I thought about that, I was like, I was being a leader from back then. So that was probably my first recollection of being a leader. And it's probably not me recollecting, it's my mum telling me, yeah, you've always had that trait, son. You've always had that trait.
Amazing. I think that's the furthest somebody's gone back, you know. I think that's a record on the podcast, because usually we go back to sort of maybe primary into secondary. So, but to go back then, and that's really good that somebody else has, because we talk about on the podcast quite a lot about the foundations. It's only when somebody gets asked the question of actually who I am now is actually built on quite a lot of foundations that were created early on.
Yeah.
So amazing. So tell us a little bit about your journey then, whether it's from 5, we've only got 15 minutes left. But tell us a little bit about your journey. And I maybe haven't talked about this a lot on the podcast, and I talk about it quite a lot in the business journey of twists and turns and ups and downs, and there's no straight lines. But I think your story maybe encapsulates that in your leadership journey. So wherever you want to start, like tell us a bit about your journey and who you are now.
Well, to be honest, my background academically, I don't think I was great. You know, I think I was very average from that point of view. And I went very quickly. I went into sales because I knew that I had the ability to, I wouldn't say persuade people, but really show people that, you know, I could help them in any way. So I went into sales very, very quickly, and I realized that I got quite good at that. I've never really had an interview. Always been headhunted from one company to another. Been made redundant a few times in my career. I think, you know, there's a few people on the call who've experienced that. And that really does knock your confidence. So being headhunted to another company was always, right, okay, so, you know, gives you a bit of self-worth. So that for me was and I think I always knew in my head I'd run my own business. I didn't know what it was, you know, I didn't have a plan, but I always knew that at some point I would run my own business. So I think that started by being in sales, because as a salesperson, yes, you're a part of a team, but you've got individual targets. And that is what I enjoyed. I enjoyed hitting and exceeding targets. And then obviously natural progression, you end up running sales teams. And again, it was the competition. It was the thrill of the hunt, I think. And that is still what I thrive on.
Sorry to interrupt straight away.
Yeah, sure.
You've reminded me about something. So there was 2 things that I realized outside of the military after like 12 months. And one of them is exactly what you just said, that the top salesperson gets headhunted or promoted into leading the team. But then I've posed this question, and some people have said that happens all the time, but not necessarily that person has the ability to lead others, because they're really good at getting, yeah. So what's your experience in that? Because obviously you were in that position, like you were then part of the team. So did you have that realization of, actually, I need to get the team on board here to maximize? Did you have a bad experience, or how did you do that yourself?
Absolutely. And I think that's probably where the imposter syndrome set in a little bit, because I was promoted quite quickly into leadership, or running a team, and being in the top 3 consistently for a number of years. And then don't get me wrong, we got to number 1 a couple of times, but nowhere near as an individual. And that sort of knocked my confidence. Was like, whoa, hang on a minute. And a massive learning curve for me, because we had a great team of people. You know how it works. You know, not everybody in your team is going to be a top performer. So if you know that person, and this is something that I've learned since then, I didn't have this knowledge then, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, if you know that person can give 50%, then you need to pat their back and say, right, this is you, this is what you can do. Absolutely, you keep doing your best to that 50%. I mean, in your head, it's 50%. You know, your vision of 100%, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you've got your 50% as your 30% as your 100% as. But I was always trying to drag the 50% up to 100%. You know, and intrinsically that would never happen.
Yeah.
But I was so I beat myself up. You know, what am I doing wrong? You know, why? You know, they've seen what I can do. You know, I can go out, and I used to do that. I used to go, what's so difficult? Look, I'd go out and I'd buddy them. I'd go out and we'd sign 10 customers. You know, and they'd be like, they couldn't sign 4, and it was just like, what are you doing? You know, why can't you just do what I do? But that was a massive learning curve for me. That was a massive learning curve. But then, like you said, I wilted away a little bit. So, and in sales, you can just move on, just move to another company, which is what I did. You know, I had a number of jobs, which is what I did. So yeah, I always wanted to get back out on the road myself. That was just the easiest thing to do. Yeah.
Are we able to do a link then? So what you're doing now compared to what you were doing then, and that's really good to be open and honest about. And I think a lot of people do that, have that experience of like, what's wrong with me? And again, we talk about that leadership of like having that situational awareness of the people around you, like everybody's different. So with that in mind, how do you go about doing stuff now with that experience in your bank of knowledge?
So it's definitely, I get more of a buzz now of seeing people that we've helped, we've mentored, we've coached, walk across the stage, as opposed to me hitting targets now. It's not about that. So it's about them. So it's about creating that culture. You know, we've got the groups, the WhatsApp groups and everything else, and the energy in the group is unbelievable. It used to be us that was generating that energy. You know, oh, you know, big up to this person and well done to that person, and you know, let's keep posting. It was just Jason and Tracy that were posting. Now it's not. Now it's the team that are posting about their successes. It's the team that are giving advice. It's the team. So for me, that was the culture shift. That was the change. And what did we do to get that change? We had to get better ourselves. I think Tracy has always been on another level to me. And we've talked about this, and you know, that was one of the reasons that I came onto your program. I've always done personal development. I always wanted to get better and improve myself, but I always had those barriers that you helped me work on. One of them was imposter syndrome. You know, that it was there, even though I knew it was there, but I didn't want to face it. I think some of it, if I'm honest, was probably a little bit cultural as well, and a bloke. I think vulnerability for me was another thing. It had to be a little bit more vulnerable. Get rid of that ego. It's still there. But I'm conscious of it. I'm aware of it, and I know I have to work on it, and I have to bite my lip. I talked about to you, didn't I, about how do I stop doing that? Because I always realize after the horse is bolted, because you can't bring it back once you've said it. So it was always about taking that step back and looking at the big pictures, that, you know, going a little bit onto NLP, just looking at that as that third person on, and looking, so you've got you've got them, and you've got that third eye. Try and be that third eye and look at the conversation and think, right, where it's going to go. So yeah, I think I've learned a lot over the years, and tried to implement a lot of the stuff, and some of the, you know, if anybody on here has not listened to any of the hashtag leadership podcasts, you need to get on there. You know, Gary Ridge, for me, I think it was number 24 or 25, probably 24. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. He's the CEO of WD-40, and he talks about his business. There's loads of lessons in that 22 minutes, which was probably, and I watched it with Tracy. I'm getting excited now because it was one of the best. There's so many things we took from it, as in personal development, as in leadership lessons. It's probably one of your best leadership lessons. You've got some great ones on there, I think 80 plus, but Gary Ridge talks a lot about they don't have managers in their business, they have coaches. Boom, drop the mic.
And you know what, I remember the voice note you sent me after that episode went out, and you were like, I couldn't sit down, I'm standing up, and like it was like shivers. It was unbelievable. There were so many leadership lessons, you know, talking about servant leadership, and you know, the 3 words that, you know, he likes people to use in his company is I don't know. You know, it's just, don't be scared to ask people for help. And I think, well, that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on, because your enthusiasm is infectious. But again, I also know where that comes from, as far as that vulnerability, and we kind of, that imposter syndrome, all those words, but they're labels. But you're like your want and need to sort of develop, and that was like the 8 people we had. Actually, I think you're on the second cohort of the leadership program, but having like-minded people around. I just did some stuff this week actually on recording this, and we talked about, like, look at what's right in front of you, like opportunities. I think you're really good at looking at opportunities, and like just tell people about your personal professional development passion. Like, well, how do you fit that in, and why do you value it so much?
It's super important. I mean, going back to Gary Ridge again, you know, he talks about being a lifelong learner. He went back to university as a CEO to learn. which for me was just unbelievable. So you need to be constantly improving yourself, constantly learning. Personal development for me is key. Now I've downloaded, I've got, you know, obviously Audible, like we all have, and I download and listen to something every single day. So whether that's 10 minutes or 10 or 20 minutes of PD. Now it could be an autobiography, it could be self-development. You know, there's lots of it out there. Or I read 10 pages of a good book. No, so wherever I am, I think sometimes when I'm actually actively doing stuff, I can listen to I can get my pods in, and I can listen to the PD that way.
Have you seen as well an impact on other people because of your just want to learn and develop? And the reason I say that is because some of the clients that we're working with at the minute with Star Development UK is really quite amazing, and it's really passionate about the people we're speaking to, funnily enough, are the ones that fit into a similar category to yourself, and they're on that lifelong journey and they want to be infectious to other people. Like I want to show people that this is a great thing to be doing. So have you got any examples of you living it and breathing it, and actually then that having an effect on your team?
I think more recently than ever, I think it's been a little bit more infectious in our team. We're currently, you know, sort of at the top for supporting a team in one of our businesses, and that was great. That's a great accolade for us, because that means that we're sort of doing something right with our team. So what we've realised, and I mentioned it earlier on, is that because of what we do and because of our belief and because of we're teaching to teach, so we're teaching to people to you know, to book on, you know, to book on a book of the month club, you know, get a CD, get a book, show my age, CD, an MP3, get an MP3, get a book, you know, delivered every month, you know, and read it, you know, don't just put it on your shelf. It's not shelf development, you know, it's self-development. So, you know, read those books. You will pick a pearl of wisdom up from each single one, and don't just read it, but implement it. You know, implement what you've learned into your daily routine. So we're seeing that within the team. And they're teaching their people, the people that they bring on board, to do the same as well, and it's sort of having this cascade effect within the team. We do a monthly meeting at a local venue, and the energy in the meeting the other night was just phenomenal. Now, it's been a while since we've had that. I know we haven't been in a room for a couple of years, but that's great to see, and I think that's what it's about for us. And eventually, it won't be Jason or Tracy in the front of the room. We'll be pushing people forward, or we'll bring them through, or pulling them up. We did it that night. You know, a couple of minutes before the start, we said to a couple of the guys who have been smashing it, "You're going to be introducing Jason and Tracy tonight," and they were like, "What? What's it?" But that's what happened to us back in the day. That's what brought us through. That's how I became a trainer, because somebody brought us through. So we're just doing what we were taught to do. Now, success leaves clues, as they say. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and again, I kind of, what you were just saying then reminded me of a way of, and again, what I'm really passionate about is our listeners to think, actually, that's me, and that's really quite important that I maybe do something like that. And I'm just saying about living on the edge of your comfort zone, and you encapsulate that, and you're saying about the imposter side of things, and putting people not on the spot, but really giving that encouraging nudge, let's say. And if you're living on the edge of your comfort zone, other people will be like, that's really valuable. I can see why it's working for them.
But people see that, people see comfort zone as this barrier. So, you know, take that out of your head. How about, instead of, you know, stepping outside your comfort zone, how about just stretching your comfort zone?
Yeah.
You know, then you don't have to have that barrier in your head of stepping outside of it all the time, or living on the edge of it. You can just stretch it and keep stretching it. That's
and I remember, I'm going to bring back a memory for you as well. I remember when we were doing some work together, that you were asked to do some talking. I think it was online or in person. I can't remember exactly when. But it just reminds me, because I've been talking about, you said about reframing that imposter syndrome and stuff, and I think you're way ahead of where we were. But I heard recently, I think I mentioned it once or twice, that if you're not experiencing imposter syndrome, you're not trying hard enough, you're not in the right rooms, and I live and breathe that. I know you do as well.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make it any more comfortable at the time.
It doesn't.
But it's really valuable as people think like that.
Huge, absolutely huge. And I think, you know, Tracy had been saying to me, you know, babe, you need to start doing some videos. You need to start putting some stuff out there. And I was like, within a week of working with you, I'd done my first video, and she was looking at me going, I told you to do that 2 years ago.
How important is that though? Because you've got people close to you, not in a tell, but like having somebody external that you end up is that know, like, and trust, isn't it? Having that credibility that, and I mention it because it's quite funny. It comes up all the time. We actually, the people that we're working with get it, and they go, if you come in, you'll get them sitting on the edge of the seat and going, and you'll be at the back of the room going, I brought them in, I could have told you that. But how much is that, I think?
That is massive. And the thing is, again, take your ego out of the equation. People will see stuff from other people. You can be telling them every single day and it won't, but somebody will come in, we'll have a speaker to come in and they'll say exactly, almost word for word. And they'll be like, oh my God, they'll be reading, do you remember what such and such said the other day? And you'll be like, I've been telling you that for weeks, for months, for years. But it is what it is. So, but that's really, really important. Sometimes you're just too close. Yeah. You're just too close. And I'm a big advocate. I'm a massive advocate of coaches. You know, in every environment. I mean, the top billionaires, the top people in the world have coaches. You know, Richard Branson's got a coach. He's got a coach for every single. We know really affluent people. They've got a coach for every single area of their life. They've got a coach for their training. They've got a coach for their business. They've got a coach for the, you know, personal relationships. So sometimes you need to have that external help.
Yeah, because I think we've run out of time, by the way. Yeah, I think we're really getting to the edge of the fact of, I think the takeaway from that is just change your perspective. Absolutely. And encourage others to change their perspective, because it really then the amount of times you can we hear the term stuck in a rut, or you've done the same thing over and over again, and funnily enough, a year's gone by. I think we can all sit down and think we've been in that area at some point, whatever element of our lives we've been in. Yeah, I mean, that's the old cliche, isn't it? It's a definition of madness, continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Something's got to change, and there's only one person that can do that, and that's going to be yourself. Yeah, awesome. Right, Jason, thank you so much. 20 minutes goes so quickly. No, thank you for having me on. Thank you so much. So, guys, if you enjoyed that, make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Every Wednesday at 6 a.m. we have somebody else, amazing guests coming along and to share their story or their expertise. If you're listening to us, make sure you hit follow on your podcast provider. And as ever, I always like to hear your takeaways from each of the episodes. I'm going to be really interested to see Jason's takeaway from his own episode, because I know you've given some feedback on all the ones we've had. So Jason, thank you so much again. Thank you. And guys, we'll all see you next week. Take care. Bye.